All right, we are live. Week 16. Our Lions down in Carolina just came away with a gut wrenching, as they call it, loss to the Carolina Panthers, putting a little bit of a dim on our playoff hopes. We know that Carolina is a decent team, but they just seem to have our number today. Let's start with just some overall takes before we can get and see what coach is talking about over here. Go ahead, son. What you got?
Well, first off, my main takeaway was, honestly, Jared Goff, he had another decent game. Um, this is probably at least his fourth game in a row where he's had well over 200 passing yards. He had 355 passing yards today. Um, that man DJ Chark is starting to really look good. Like I said, ever since the Bills game, he's really been turning it on. He had 4 receptions for 108 yards. And really, that's the kind of game you expect for a guy like that. I mean, he's like 6'3", and he runs a 4.340. So really, that's what I would expect from a guy like him. That's really what we need from him every week now, because it's really time to get ready for the playoffs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we know he's a target every week. He's going to get up there in the receptions. He had 7 receptions. But, I mean, other than that, I would say it's all negatives. The Lions, they looked worse than the same old Lions. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. The Panthers did not do anything special on offense, even a little bit. And maybe, honestly, that was their game plan. They came out there using, we'll talk about that later. But, yeah, the Lions basically, they got destroyed for the most part, if I'm being real.
No, I hear you on that. They definitely, as the commentator said, got punched in the mouth. Carolina didn't do really anything special. You can tell that they were keeping the game out of Sam Darnold's hands. They turned to their run game, and even after the way we shut down, I think we got a little full of ourselves because of the way that our boys shut Saquon Barkley down about a month ago. So and Deontay Foreman he had 10 carries for 9 yards last week. I even heard a fantasy guy say, if you have Deontay Foreman, do not play him this week. And then he goes out and gets 70 yards in the first quarter, the first half, something like that. Uh, as we at as we speak, we see that Coach Dan Campbell is talking about something. Let's see what Coach is talking about here.
They got after us pretty good, man. That's a hard pill to swallow there. You know, you say things, but ultimately, when you play that way, it falls on me. I didn't have them ready to go, and that wasn't good enough. That was a hungry team we played, and we didn't look as hungry as they did. That's the bottom line. They.
And I'm going to agree with everything Coach said right there. It does. They did seem like they weren't ready to play. They seemed like they weren't ready to go. Son, you said something earlier that Jared Goff said about where the Lions are now. What was that?
Well, Jared Goff was just really pointing out that he was talking about like the different points that some players are on the team, and I'm really paraphrasing here, but
on it there, right?
The main thing that he really was pointing out is that this team is really young, and earlier in the season the Lions had nothing to lose. So you have nothing to lose. There's no pressure. All you can do is win these games. Because the playoffs is always in your mind, but I'm sure even as fans, they're not stupid. They probably didn't think it was a real possibility. But when you go on a tear like this, you play close games against the Bills, and then you win 6 games in a row. Maybe it's the opposite of starting to get lax. When really good teams are on a run, they get lax. I would say it was the opposite with the Lions. I think maybe the Lions could have got super tense. Maybe they were overthinking today. I don't know. Maybe it really was that it was so cold that it really did affect them. And maybe it really just affected their motivation in getting these tackles. Because, I mean, like they said earlier, the commentators are saying the defensive line could get no separation. But, yeah, Jared Goff was mainly just saying that these young players aren't used to winning this many games, and they're not used to the pressure. But this is NFL, so you got to get used to the pressure pretty quick.
Agree. I can't disagree with anything that you just said. Let's run through the team. Let's run through like we do every week. Let's run through where we, our pros and cons, our grades, etc. Let's start with the quarterback. You kind of you've pretty much already said it, but give me your thoughts on our quarterback Jared Goff.
Oh, I mean, like I said earlier, he had 355 yards, but that's very deceiving. If I'm being honest, I know this is gonna sound weird, but I want to say he had like an effective game. To be honest, he had 355 yards. I don't really know how. I guess there's just a few big shots here and there that the Lions got. I know the biggest one was Cleve Raymond on that 56-yard game. Um, but really, it was just another good performance from Jared Goff, to be honest. I can't really fault him. He was 25 for 42. That's not a bad game. And he threw 3 touchdowns. I mean, granted, it was to Shane Zylstra all 3 times, but I can't get mad. Jared Goff is also rolling out the pocket more, and he's running with more, like he's running like he at least wants to get a first down. So
I agree with you. I'm gonna give him a B plus if I have to give him a grade today. I've said this for the last few weeks. I believe that we have our quarterback. I don't think that we need to go into this draft, especially not in the first round, looking for a quarterback. If anything, they can do like Tennessee did with Malik Willis, looking for a long-term deal, a long-term quarterback. But I think we have our quarterback, and I think that we can kind of put an end to that. Let's talk about the running backs. Son, you're the one with the stats. What did you think about how did our running backs do today? What did you think about the running backs?
I mean, for being real, the running game has been quiet for. If I'm being honest, the running game has been quiet as long as the Lions have been on this win streak for. So I'm honestly, uh, I'm not surprised that they won these games, but it's kind of surprising that they've been able to win these games with the running game being honestly kind of mediocre. I don't know what's going on. Nobody had over 10 carries. Now, you could argue that this is because literally the Panthers had the ball the whole game, or you could say it's that the coaches aren't I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're trying to share the ball. I don't know what's going on. But DeAndre Swift only had 4 carries. Jared Goff almost matched DeAndre Swift for carries. DeAndre Swift had 3 carries for 15 yards. DeAndre Swift had 4 carries for 12 yards. Jamal Williams only had 7 carries for 11 yards. It's like, okay, we're a top offensive line, but I don't remember the last time we've had a game where we've had a running back over 100 yards. Matter of fact, I don't think it's been since the first week of the league or the second game of the year. So I don't know. I can't. I don't know what to say. Like, I can't blame the running backs because they're only getting 4 carries a game. Like, I don't know what's going on.
I agree with you. It's starting to. It's a good question. I don't know if this is coming from Coach Dan Campbell, if it's coming from Deuce Staley, if it's coming from our offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. I don't know where this is coming from, but we definitely are not sticking to the run game. Now, some could say today that the Lions were behind most of the game. Generally, when a team is behind, what's going to happen? You're usually going to pass the ball more. So it could be that. Okay, son, give us your thoughts on our wide receivers.
Um, I thought the receivers look pretty good, especially DJ Chark and St. Brown. Like I've said in weeks before, St. Brown is starting to just become a consistent target. But like I keep saying, he's not a number one receiver. I mean, DJ Chark stepped up in that role today. He's a number one receiver type guy, and we kind of saw it with those big catches that he made. I mean, come on, guys. 4 catches for 108 yards. Like, that's those are Mike Evans type numbers. Those are Justin Jefferson type numbers. And that's what we need from Justin Jefferson, or that's what we need from DJ Chark week in and week out. I mean, I don't know. This really was a really weird game. Like I said, I don't know how Goff really had that many yards. If you look at the stats, Shane Zylstra had the most receptions, so I guess that was a surprise. If we break it down, I'm getting really frustrated because Jameson Williams is not getting any targets. And it's like, he's obviously not hurt. He's not hurt because we saw him in person flying down the field, and we've seen him on TV burning corners. So it really makes me almost want to call up Dan Campbell myself and be like, bro, what's going on with Jameson Williams? Why is he not getting more reps? Literally, this guy is so good that, like, you have to have him out there. Like, you have to have him out there, whether it's for a decoy or whether you're actually going to give him the ball. He's just that kind of guy. And I think literally he can make the difference between winning a game and losing a game. So I thought the receivers did good, but they just have to get Jameson Williams the ball more if they want to go to the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah, right there. That right there. That's the thing. They said that Jameson Williams is going to play more as every week goes by. We know that they said they were going to take it slow with him, but they're taking it really slow with him. He's playing the same amount of snaps. If nothing else, put him on the field to make the safeties get scared. So that'll give more room for Chark and say Brown, Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds for those guys to get open. Speaking of Josh Reynolds, I know that he got hammered in the fourth quarter, but my man drops a lot of passes. It reminds me of I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago, and the guy on the podcast made a point. He was like, if you go back to just let's just say the 90s, Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, those guys, you did not see those guys just dropping balls. I don't know what it is with the receivers now that these guys actually drop a lot of balls. It was kind of even if you go to early 2000s. I mean, you can go back to Antonio Brown, you can go to Hines Ward, name them. You didn't see those guys dropping passes. These receivers drop a lot of passes. Let's go with the offensive line. I was kind of concerned this week with Brian Burns, and we see that he was giving Taylor Decker to work in a few plays. What did you think about the offensive line today?
um, you know, I think the offensive line looked terrible, but I feel like I said this last week. I'm gonna start having to bring down that grade slowly because the run game just isn't like nothing's going on with the run game at all. Like even a little bit. I don't think I saw a run for more than 10 yards today. So I'm gonna have to give them a C minus because Jared Goff also did get sick twice. I know they had Brian Burns back there, but I mean that's whatever, man. Like uh, I don't know. You guys are supposed to be a top 5 offensive line as well, so you have to be able to contain those kind of guys. But in pass protection, I don't think they look that bad. But there's obviously something going on in the run game. Like I can't just put it all in the running backs. It has to be the offensive line too that's causing the run game to be so stagnant.
Agreed. Let's move to the defense. They gave up 37 points to the Carolina Panthers. A majority of those points were on the ground. Let's start with the defensive line that was getting no push. What did we see from from the front level, the defensive line? What did you see?
F, man, I would give them an F minus if I could actually. Um, yeah, the defensive line looked like. I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to be rude, but this is what no, I can't even say this is what I expected the Lions defensive line looked like. But everyone knows that the Lions defensive line has been shaky for years. And you brought this up earlier. I feel like we got tricked because they've been locking up the run so well for these past weeks that it's almost an afterthought. Like of all people to have an explosive game, we didn't think it would be Deonta Foreman and I don't know who his chain link running back is, but I wasn't expecting them to, I don't think many people were expecting them to have a breakout game like that. So yeah, I thought the D line looked pretty bad today. I mean, actually, no, they looked terrible. They did nothing to stop them. I don't think it was very rare when it was very rare to see their running backs get stopped in the line of scrimmage or and honestly, it was rare to even see their running backs to get just 2 yards on the run. It almost seemed like every time their running backs touched the ball, it was at least 5 yards a carry. So,
Yes, F would have to be. Yes, they just got punched in the mouth, which brings me to the second level, which is the linebackers. If the running backs are running for career days, franchise days for the Panthers, for what we were hearing, what do we have? What about the linebackers? Do we put a lot of this on the front four to be able to contain it, and the linebackers be the second defense, or what do we think about the linebackers today when it came to stopping the run?
oh, they were terrible. They stopped the run. You know how it is. Like always, like we always say in Madden, I always be complaining, man, my safety's always coming up to make the tackles. Why is my safety always having to come and make the tackles? Who was the man who led the Lions in tackles today? The second stringer, Melifonwu. He had 7 tackles. Who was the second guy? Kirby Joseph. Well, guess what, guys? Those are both safeties. Oh, who's the third guy? Jeff Okuda, a cornerback. So when your top 3 guys who are getting the most tackles are safeties and corners, you lost the game. I don't think you could look at any game where the safety is the number 1 tackler and a team won. I can almost guarantee you that's never happened before. The linebackers were getting blocked the whole game. They did terrible. Alex Anzalone only had 4 tackles. Malcolm Rodriguez only had 3. The linebackers were nowhere to be seen. Literally, the corners let the team. The corners were top 10 in the team in tackles before the linemen were. So yeah.
I'm with you 100% on that. We're gonna get the secondary next. I think I told you before, son. Now I didn't see this guy play, but maybe once or twice in my life. But it reminds me of the late 80s, 89 to like 91. There was a safety named Tim McDonald. I remember him because I collect football cards back then, tops football cards, and I forget the other company. And there was this guy, Tim McDonald. He played for the Arizona Cardinals. Well, back then they were the Phoenix Cardinals. And this dude had like back-to-back year. He was a strong safety. He had back-to-back years where he had between 146 and 152 tackles. A safety should not be making that many tackles. That's crazy. And what you're saying is what happened today. Melifonwu, who's in for a hurt Deshaun Elliott, and Kirby Joseph right there with a Akuda, they led the team in tackles, which means that the running backs were getting to the third level. Past the first, past second to the third. Running backs should not be getting to the third level if you're going to win, which brings us to the DBs. We kind of just talked about the corners. I'm sorry, the safeties. What did you think about the DBs, the corners, and the safeties?
Yeah, they did terrible too. And I feel like we just didn't notice that the DBs did terrible because the linemen were getting cooked so bad. But we can count. There was 3 Panther receivers with over 50 yards receiving, and to me, this is a big deal because they all had under 5 receptions. DJ Moore, 5 receptions, 83 yards. Marshall Jr., 2 receptions, 55 yards. Chenault had 3 receptions for 53 yards. I mean, guys, that's terrible. Like I mentioned with other games where the Lions have won. Like, for example, against the Vikings, Kirk Cousins snapped against the Lions. He had well over 300 yards passing. That was okay because we shut down Dalvin Cook completely. This is not okay. We can't let the running backs run all over us. They had a career game. And then DJ Moore had a regular game. Sam Darnold had a regular game. You can't allow that to happen. So, yeah.
I agree. I would give them a I would say that our guys did terrible. If it wasn't for the safeties, it would have been worse than that. The corner. So basically, those stats you read to me, son, I just realized that you said that I think one guy you said had 2 receptions for 55 yards. So that means thank you. That means that these guys were averaging 20 to 25 yards a catch. That's not acceptable. Special teams, I don't have anything for special teams today. I would say that special teams, we made the kicks we made. It was what it was. I think we did have a big return by it wasn't Khalif Raymond, but I think it was Jackson had a good kick return. So let's talk about where we are now. I hope you all can see my screen. I'm gonna try to go full screen. Let me refresh this. Let's see where we are. The Lions will now drop to 7-8. We do still have some time to go, so the playoff push is not completely over. So let's look at the earlier games and let's see where we are in the playoff push. Let me see. The Bills beat the Bears. That didn't really mean anything. Let me see. The Saints beating the Browns doesn't really affect us. But here's a game that helps us. The Chiefs did beat the Seahawks, as you can see, 24-10. So that means that the Seahawks are now also 7-8, right along with us. It was a close one, but the Giants lost. The Vikings pulled through for us, and we see that the Vikings have lost. That game was meaningless. Ravens and Falcons were meaningless. Wow, the Texans won. And then Thursday, no, that didn't affect us either. So let's see the other games that will mean something to us, guys. Packers at Dolphins. To me, this is a big game because we need Aaron Rodgers to get off his high horse and not go back to 2012 Aaron Rodgers. We need the Dolphins to knock them out tomorrow. Broncos, Rams don't really affect us. and really Buccaneers, Cardinals don't affect us. So the three teams that we talked about, son, that we needed to lose were the Giants, who lost, the uh sorry, the I can't believe I've got the Giants.
Commanders.
Thank you. The Seahawks lost, and the other game we need, which is going on right now, would be the Commanders. So, son, what do you think about what we just went over? What do you think about our playoff push?
Yeah, what I would say about the playoff push is Lions got really lucky. I'm thinking that this might be the perfect time for them to have lost a game. Really, I don't think their chances. I mean, maybe mathematically their chances would be affected, but really, if the Commanders lose, their chances shouldn't change that much. If they win the next two games, they should still have a pretty decent chance of making the playoffs. Um, I feel like this was also a good loss for them because maybe just maybe some players could have been getting a little cocky or something. They could have thought we're just going to run through the Bears and the Packers. So now they realize that they need to be back on guard and you know, I just think it's like a wake up call a little bit. I don't think that they completely thought they were just like the kings of the NFC, but I'm also happy they lost so they could get a little humbled. And I do think I'm not that I am disappointed, but I do think they'll be able to bounce back against the Bears next weekend and get the win then. So I still think the playoff hopes are just as alive as they were last week.
You just made a very good point. Sometimes you do have to get punched in the mouth to remember who you are and what you need to do. It reminds me of something Deion Sanders said last week when he did his final press conference, and they asked him what happened in 2021. You guys made it to the Celebration Bowl after going 11-1. The only team they lost to was a FBS team, and he said, "What do you think happened?" He said, "Honestly, we were smelling ourselves. That's what happened. We went into this thing, we're rolling, we rolled through the SWAC, and we were smelling ourselves." I kind of feel that maybe the Lions were smelling themselves just a little bit in this game. Hey, we on the roll. We've won, what, 6 out of 7. We're going to go into Carolina Christmas Eve, get this win, and then we're going to take care of business next week at home against the Bears and then the Packers. That's what I think happened. But hopefully you're right. Hopefully this is the wake-up call they need, and you're right. I don't think that the Commanders are going to beat the 49ers. They could, but if they do, that's another gift. So we already have 2 gifts. That's one more gift if the Commanders lose, and then we're still in the playoff hunt. So with that said, let's talk about, before we get out of here, let's talk about the Bears next week. Last game at home next week against the Bears. What do you see? What needs to happen, and what do you see happening?
Um, I see Justin Fields having a very big game, but I just don't think, man, if I'm being honest, I don't exactly remember the score of the Lions Bears games last time. I feel like it was a tight one. Yeah, it was. It was 31-30. So I the thing that's gonna have to be different this week, it's fine. You can allow just I'm not saying this like it's good, but you can allow Justin Fields to run, but you can't also be the Lions and be like, oh, Justin Fields had 250 yards passing, he had his best game passing as well. That's what the Lions can't allow to happen. I feel like if they can control Justin Fields on the passing attack and they just return to their same old Lions offense where they're not when they're not throwing to the Shane Zylstra, I think they'll be all right, and they should be able to beat the Bears.
I agree with you. Honestly, I it's hard for me. I'm gonna be honest. You and I talked about this earlier this week. I could see them losing to the Panthers, which they just did. I could see it earlier in the week. Even though I picked our Lions to win, I thought it would be 27-16. I thought they would win something like that. But I could see it happening, but I can't see it next week. I cannot see them losing to the Bears, who have Justin Fields and literally nothing else on offense. I think the Lions will show up next week. I think the Lions will score at least 3 touchdowns. I think it'll be a 24-13 type of game. Maybe 24-17. Justin Fields is going to do something freaky, i.e. Mike Vick. He's going to probably have some crazy run. He's probably going to have over 100 yards, but we cannot let him sit in the pocket and get comfortable and throw the ball. So I think the Lions will be back at 8-8 next week. All right, Lions fans, that's it. It was a hard one on Christmas Eve for us to see, but it happens. And as my son said, hopefully that's the wake-up call they need. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment what your thoughts on it, hit the notification bell so we can keep talking Lions football. Other than that, Merry Christmas, Lions fans. Let's get it next week. That's all I have. Peace.
Peace.